I realize that a lot of the podcasts that I like don't have like a bumper or anything. So I just like starting and going.
Just in it.
Yeah. So this week I have been looking at possibly adopting a second little doggy to join my family. I don't know if I'm ready for another dog. It is a huge responsibility and undertaking, and the one that I'm looking at is only 2 months old, but is adorable. So, but what I find to be really interesting is the experience of going through the adoption agencies. Now, I'm not going to the same place that I got my current dog, Penny. She is the most wonderful puppy in the world. But that is not because I didn't like the place. It was just that right now the current inventory of dogs are not what I'm into. So I had a really good experience at that place, though. And what I have found interesting is not all places are created equal, and in some cases they're just a challenge. Now, I think that every shelter, every adoption agency probably has the same goal, right? Everybody wants to place their dog or their dogs or cats or whatever into good homes that are going to have loving owners that are going to be able to take care of them, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's just interesting that like the way that you get to that common goal is so different. And I think that, again, obviously this is a salon podcast. All salons, again, have probably the same goal, right? Like, not that we want to adopt, put dogs out, but they are trying to create happy clients that love their hair everywhere you go. But the paths that we take in order to get there are going to be different from salon to salon, just like the path to get the dog home is different between shelter and shelter. And so the current shelter that has the dog that I'm interested in is a no fun zone. There's not an ounce of enjoyment to be had during the process of getting a dog. And I will dive into the process here. When you go to this place, and I don't want to call them out by name because they do a lot of good for people, but when you go, you sign in, they will allow you to look at the dogs if you just care to walk through the halls and browse at the dogs in the room. If you want to actually interact and maybe get to know a dog, you have to fill out a full adoption application before doing so. Now, I'm sure some people can justify it. Obviously, they can justify it. But it just seems like a fairly big barrier to entry when by being able to interact with the dog, you might actually fall in love with it. Versus just basing it off of, well, this one looks cute. All right, so I went in. I wanted to see the dog, so I filled out the entire application. And, of course, the application is 4 pages long because it has to be. We're not going to just give you a micro-sized application and then get to it. So they say, okay, you sit up in this room. We're going to bring in the dog so that you can see it. Awesome. I'm excited. I finally, I'm going to get to play. I do not get to play. The volunteer brings the dog in, and it's a little 8-week-old terrier mix. This thing is 6 pounds. So he brings the dog in, keeps this little dog on a leash the entire time. I don't even get to hold it. I don't get to, I got to pet it, but the dog is, of course, it's on a leash. So the whole time it's really kind of interacting with the volunteer and not with me. Oh, he also tells me that I can't sit on the floor. I can kneel, I can crouch like a hidden tiger. I can be there and interact with it, but I can't sit on the floor because it's a safety concern that in case this little dog gets too aggressive. And I'm like, it's 6 pounds. I think I'll be okay. So anyway, I'm trying to get to know this dog. And the volunteer is, of course, asking me good dog owner questions like, do you rent or do you own? How many other people are in the house? What's your schedule going to be like to be able to take care of a puppy? But so it's kind of pulling me mentally in 2 different directions where I'm trying to be responsible so that I can answer the questions and focus on that element. But I also am trying to just enjoy the puppy and see the puppy's personality. And so I'm kind of distracted while trying to get to know this potential adoption. And on top of all of this, there's 4 or 5 more volunteers in the room shadowing the volunteer that's helping me to see how do you interact with a potential adopter. And the whole thing was overwhelmingly unfun. That's the only way that I can describe it. Like, in my mind, when you go to possibly get a pet that you're going to add to your home, like, it's a fun experience. Dogs are fun. Puppies are fun. Why not build an experience around the people coming in, enjoying their time in the shelter? You know, obviously shelters can be a very depressing place. So why can't we build fun into the experience and not have it be all about systems and the protocol and paperwork? Yes, that's all important and that needs to be taken care of, but there's a way for us to get there. Now, the place that I got my wonderful Penny at, Chicago Canine Rescue in Chicago, I will give them a shout out because I loved their experience. And again, if they had a dog that I was interested in, I'd be back there in a heartbeat. But when I went there, you sign in, you get paired up with a volunteer. That volunteer took me through every single dog and gave me their backstory. It wasn't just a chart with their medical and previous adoption histories or anything like that. It was a heartfelt walkthrough of this is who this dog is. Here's some of the things that we've discovered about them. Here's the type of place that might be the best fit. So for instance, we went up to this one that I thought was like really cute, and I think it was some sort of a pit bull mix, and she said, this dog got really aggressive with one of our male volunteers a couple of times, and so we're a little cautious about putting it in a home that has a man in the house. And I was like, well, that's not going to be good, right? So that's not a good dog. Then when we got to Penny, they told me that she had come up from a stray shelter in Oklahoma, that she had actually previously been adopted, but the family had her for about 6 months and returned her because she had some separation anxiety. So they felt that a home where somebody couldn't be home fairly frequently would be a bad fit for her. But I had the knowledge to be able to make an educated decision ahead of time. When it came to interacting with Penny, they gave me a room that just had a bunch of toys in it. And the volunteer wasn't in there, so that I could just hang out. There were toys, there were a couple of treats that we could give them, and it was just fun. You just got to play. And actually, when I went back to see Penny the second time, all the rooms were full, so they photocopied my driver's license and let me take her to the park nearby, and on an actual walk, and not just, again, a volunteer holding the leash for me while I was talked to. And then the final step for Chicago Canine Rescue was actually a home visit. So they brought Penny to the house, made sure that everything was clean, that we didn't have loose wires or holes in the floor, and so they were able to see an on-site this place is well put together. This could be a home for a dog. So just think about those two experiences. In a salon, I think that we can make the experience fun, or we can make the experience about the efficiencies. Get them in, get them out. And we can make it all about the process versus making it about how much fun a salon can be and how engaging a salon can be. I even think to a certain degree, all of the social media and content creation could start to become looked at as a negative to the salon experience, because our guests are paying for their service, but then we're also trying to turn them into our commercial. But if you make it fun and engaging and you make it a fun part of the experience, then again, it stays on the fun side. So I just thought that it was a great, again, another example of looking out into the world and seeing what am I going through, what are the experiences that I'm having, and how do I pull them back into the salon in a way that's going to make things fresh. We of course have systems in the salon, from the check-in to getting guests a beverage to the shampoo, but we can make every element of the salon visit a fun experience as opposed to just making it all about the process. So I would love it if you would share this podcast, Salon Sidekick podcast, with your coworkers, with your owners, with your hairstylist friends. If you give us a rating, thumbs up on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this, it really helps us with discovery so other people can get to know the show. And keep watching for F&F Q&A, which is our question and answer show that comes out on Fridays. That is both in audio and video on YouTube. And you can always ask a question to me directly at ben@thehairloftltd.com. Until the next Sidekick podcast, continue to live your successful lifestyle.